And now I'll turn this over to Phil for the competition.
All right, can everybody hear us? Give us,
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
thank you. All right, tonight we have sign B abstract. How do I get rid of that? In. All right. There we go. The sign B abstract. Oh, I can't see anything. We don't have a lighted keyboard anymore. Dynamic lights. What keyboard is
Can you remove this thing?
that? I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of this.
You can't get rid of it. Maybe you can drag it in.
Actually, you should be able to get rid of it.
Here we go.
There we go.
Good work. Okay, you know, it's an interesting arrangement. Abstract is pretty subjective. It's, you know, of course, it's not realistic, so the usual kind of criteria don't hold as much. So I have to judge these based on just my aesthetic sense of impact and design. And in this particular case, I like the central part. I don't know that this coming in from the side helps it any. I think it would be more interesting without that. And I would like to see a little more detail here. I'll take a second look, 7.
Curled.
Well, that's an interesting arrangement. You know, I don't have any idea exactly how it was created. I guess it's really two structures. One is this paper type structure and another looks like a glass ball. But it's a nice arrangement. It's intriguing. You know, impact is really making me want to look more at the image. And I think this one does. It makes me want to examine it and see what's happening. The spiral shape is dynamic. 7.
Monochrome mosaic.
You know, this one doesn't have a center of interest. And I think it's always helpful if you can have a center. It's a pattern shot. It's an interesting pattern shot. I like the contrast. I like the diagonals. I like the sense that it's floating. Despite the lack of a center of interest, I'd like to see it again. 7.
Escalator.
Well, you know, the maker got some nice diagonals here, all receding up into the upper right-hand corner. Couple contrasting diagonals going down. It's interesting, and you know, I apologize if it's subjective, but to me, it's just lacking in impact. Whoop, yeah, that's lacking in impact.
There we go. Damn table.
And you know, I'd like to see a little more detail up in the top. It's just plain white, kind of burnt out on top. I'm giving this one a 6.
Vibrant lines.
I like the shape. It's pretty dynamic, almost like a horn of plenty. I'm not sure if I like the fact that it goes off the edge on top. But other than that, there's not much to criticize. It's an interesting composition. 7. I'm practically yelling.
To the sky.
interesting, but not really dynamic. You know, it's a little, it's almost like a macro shot where you want it to be sharp throughout, and it's very soft on the bottom. 6.
Spinning lights.
It's an interesting arrangement. I think the maker probably has a little too much in here. I think this is one of these cases where less would be more. And I don't know that you need both of these competing with each other and kind of.
Yeah, I think that would help us. We're gonna figure out if it's the cord or the connection. You're on the cord. There you go.
Far back, but
Actually, no, we're off the table. You're, yeah, just move forward just a little bit. There we go. Okay.
That's pretty good.
Now we don't have to bump it.
Yeah, I'd like to see one of these, not two, and I'd like to see the edges of it not quite clipped as it is. It looks like an accident, the way it's just clipped at the edges here. 6.
Sculpted steel.
Well, that's interesting. It certainly is dynamic, all the curves, bringing my eye around, the differences in brightness. 7.
Spiraling splendor.
I like this one a lot. Of course, it's realistic. I'm going to judge it. I'm guessing it qualifies, even though it is a recognizable subject. The design is certainly an abstract one, bringing my eye down through the staircase. The only suggestion I have is that your eye tends to go toward the brightest area. And in this case, the brightest area is off in the corner, where I think you really want my eye going is down to the center, down at the bottom. 7.
Rocket.
You know, it's an interesting structure, kind of shooting up in the middle. It's just too much white. I think it could stand to be cropped in or maybe darkened a little bit along the edges, so I see a little more detail. 6.
Looking in.
I like the way the center of interest is off center, bringing my eye down into the whatever that structure is. I do think that that these out of focus elements in the foreground, though, are distracting. And I think that in this kind of shot, ideally you'd want everything sharp and not the flowers. Thank you. Not the flowers being soft in the foreground. 6.
Down the hole.
Well, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at, but you know, the colors are interesting. The light arrangement is interesting. It doesn't have, to me at least, a lot of impact. I'll see it again, but I'm not sure how much I'll be elevating at 7.
Light swirling.
Well, this one certainly follows the principles that I asked for in the earlier ones. I mean, the structure is entirely contained within the frame. The swirl is nice. It's pretty sharp. 7.
Ancient metamorphic.
Well, I'm not quite sure what the maker was trying to convey here. It is, I don't know that it's metamorphic, but it is amorphic. It's not clear what the structure is. The only clear structure is just this little bit right at the edge I'm giving this one a 6.
Transcendent geometry.
I like this one. It's an intriguing shot. Looks like the maker did some kind of transformation in Photoshop, but I think it works well. It draws my eye around and up. Everything kind of converges on this point, bringing me up to the top. Nice black and white conversion, 7.
Flag.
Well, it's a recognizable subject, but I think that the sharp shadow and the horizontal line contrasting, it's just a nice arrangement of different geometric shapes that looks abstract, and it's pleasing. I think there's some detail in the brights. 7.
Okay,
So again,
10 to score.
8, 9, 8, 8, 9, 8, 7, 9, 9, 9.
All right.
That's it.
Yeah. Review contest.
Right over here. Review contest, right there. No, right there.
Oh, thank you. Sign B abstract. Honorable mention. Dynamic lights, Al Ficuccio. Monochrome mosaic, Emma Tager. Vibrant lines, Margot Partridge. Spiraling splendor, Emma Tager. Sign B abstract, equal merit. Curl, Fernando Gomes. Sculpted steel, Fernando Gomes. Light swirling, Al Ficuccio. Transcendent geometry, Emma Tager. Flag, Wayne Greenstone. Okay. Abstract. For contest, we got 15. Assigned A abstract. Into the Woods.
Well, it's a nice intentional camera movement. I think that I wouldn't like to see quite as much white on top. And I'm wondering if that could be cropped down a bit just to get rid of most of the white, or if it could be painted in. Well, the white to me is distracting. The main subject is here, especially the path going through the woods. 6.
Lines and angles.
It's nicely done. I think that the contrast between the diagonals coming in and the verticals going up with the break here and the different tones above it, it's a nice combination. And it's dynamic. It holds my interest. 7.
Knot.
That's an interesting treatment of a knot. I might have liked it placed off center, right in the middle. Sometimes it works. I don't know that it works that well here. The sparkly treatment on it, I'm not sure that it adds an awful lot. It might have been just as good in natural colors. I usually think that these sparkly kind of filters, they need to have a purpose, and I'm just not sure what the purpose is here. I'll see it again. 7.
Spot 3.
Well, that's interesting. The swirl is dynamic. The colors draw my eye into the middle. It's not a real high impact image. It's a little bit flat, but I'll see it again, 7.
Incoming.
Well, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at here. And you know, I apologize, but with these abstract ones, you're really judging mostly by impact. And impact, of course, is with these kind of images, somewhat subjective. But to me, this one just doesn't hold my interest. It's not a real high impact image. I'm giving it a 6.
Ellipse.
I like this one. It's I think sharp, interesting. The only suggestion I have is I don't know why you have a lot more space on the bottom than on the top. I probably would have dropped in a bit from the bottom. 7.
Beaming.
Interesting structure. I like the way the curved line takes me through the image. I like, you know, it's very interesting architecture. And I think it's an abstract enough image, especially with these, looks like reflections, to be judged. 7.
Bark.
Well, this is a little more interesting than the knot. I like the black and white conversion. I think the tones are well maintained. You know, it's not, to me at least, a real impactful image, but I'd like to see it again. Technically, it's well done. 7.
Left twist.
Well, I think that I like the way the image is drawing my eye into the middle. Again, to me at least, not a real high impact image. I think there's probably too much empty space along the sides. I might have dropped it in a little more to give the center a little more impact. 6.
Reflections on Golden Pond.
Pleasing, but relatively low impact. You know, there's no clear center of interest. My eye is kind of wandering all over. 6.
Starburst.
Well, this one has a little more pop to it. I think that the kind of jagged zigzag lines going into the center are interesting. I might have put it a little bit more off center to give it a little more dynamism. But I'll see it again. 7.
Last cast of light.
You know, I like this one. I think the treatment of it is interesting. I'm not sure that this black along the sides works. I might have cropped it in about here and perhaps even cropped it in right here to fill the whole frame with the pattern and especially to emphasize that piece. But it's interesting. 7.
Vines.
Well, you know, I like the way the maker emphasized these few lines, and I'm not sure that this one helps. I think it might have been better just to keep the viewer's eye right here. This way I'm bouncing back and forth between the two. I do like the contrast between these shades, the more saturated shades, and the desaturated background. 7.
Spot 2.
Interesting, but relatively low impact. And again, I think maybe if this were placed a little more off center in one direction or the other, it would be a little more dynamic. Placed right in the middle as it is, despite the fact that you have all these lines converging, it just seems like a static composition to me. 6.
Sands and shadows.
I like this one a lot. I like the way it's brightest up here and gradually getting darker, the bright areas anyway. The curves are interesting. It has a dynamism to it, the way it kind of flows toward the bottom from bright to dark. The shapes are interesting, curving diagonally through. 7.
Okay, 10 to score.
9. 7. 7. 8. 9. 8. 8. 8. 8. 9.
Signed A abstract. Did I do that right? Honorable mention. Ellipse, Wendy Kaplitz. Bark, Nellie Stollers. Starburst, Wendy Kaplitz. Last Call of Light, Charlene Fedorowski. Vines, Nellie Stollers. Equal Merit. Lines and Angles, Charlene Fedorowicz. Beaming, Charlene Fedorowicz. Sands and Shadows, Wendy Milligan. Okay. Salon abstract. Assigned Salon abstract. Oculus reimagined.
Well, this is a nice job. I think the shapes are beautiful, the way the shapes on the left curve and then flow down into the middle, contrasting with the diagonal shapes on the right. And I think the hues, those rainbow hues, actually add a nice touch to it. 7.
Mysterious Journey.
Well, this one works well. I think what I saw in the last couple of competitions was mostly these vertical shapes, but I think in this particular case, the figure in the center adds a center of interest to it and draws my eye in. Another nice job. 7.
Lost in the Forest.
Interesting shot, could be rust. I like it, but I think it might have been more interesting if it had been tilted so that these were diagonals instead of verticals. You'd have to find a different name for it, but it would have been a more interesting shot. But nonetheless, 7.
Water Can't.
That's interesting. I like the three-dimensional effect with the kind of oval down at the bottom, making you think that it's a cylindrical solid. Not to me a real high impact image, but intriguing. 7.
Tunnel to Imagination.
Well, the geometry of it is interesting. I'm not sure that I like the color scheme. I don't know that it enhances the image at all. And I think the color scheme is an integral part of this particular composition. So for that reason, 6.
Oculus Abstract.
Another interesting composition. Again, I think that both the composition and the color arrangement enhance this one, really carrying my eye through the image, almost giving it a shimmering effect. 7.
Oil Film Abstract.
It's interesting, but I'm looking for something that I can rest my eye on. And there's just too much here. I really think it might have been stronger if the maker focused perhaps on this little thing toward the right that looks like a volcano, or just on this larger section toward the upper left that almost looks like a face or a head. Just a little too much in this one, a little too busy for me. 6.
Mermaid.
This would be a good entry in a minimalism competition. I'm not sure that it works for me, at least for abstract. There's just a little too little for me to hold my eye onto. Or for anyhow, I can't say that right, but you know what I mean. 6.
Oh, Calatrava ribs. Hopefully I got that right.
You know, it's an interesting composition with the diagonals going from left to upper right, lower left, upper right. And the way that the pattern stops kind of 2/3 of the way through, and all these diagonals on the right, the white parts have no lines going. It's intriguing. It's interesting. 7.
Traveling swirls.
Nice and sharp. It's well contained, well cropped. 7.
Fall colors ICM.
Well, it's a combination of movement in the camera and an unusual color scheme. I think it has impact. I don't know that you need quite as much room on the bottom, because it's really the brightest part of the image. Well, almost the brightest, probably brightest in the middle here. I'll see it again. 7.
Milkweed thistle.
It's hard to believe that that's a natural subject, but the title implies that it is. It's a fascinating image. I might have made it a pano. I don't know that you need that much white on the bottom. But other than that, it's really quite intriguing. 7.
Winter storm.
You know, I'm looking for a center of interest. I'm looking for something that to me gives it impact, and I just don't see it. Technically, it seems well done. I can't really critique it technically. It's more a question of the subject. 6.
Bridge.
Unusual perspective. Dramatic post-processing. Very well done. 7.
Rock center tree zoom blur.
I think this is well done as well, and I like the fact that I might have placed this a little more off center. It's just, the center of it is just a touch off center. I'd like to see it a little more. Doesn't have to be in those rule of thirds spots, but I just think it would be more dynamic and more interesting if it were a little further away from the center.
Hello?
7.
Okay.
9. 9. 8. 8. 9. 8. 9. 8. 9. 9. 8.
Abstract assigned Salon, honorable mention. Lost in the Forest, Arlene Sopranzetti. Water can, Peter Smegel. Calatrava ribs, Peter Smegel. Fall Colors ICM, Natalie Gregorio. Rock Symmetry, Zumbler, Ellen Stein. Equal Merit, Oculus Reimagined, Natalie Gregorio. Mysterious Journey, Lenny McDonald. Oculus Abstract, Natalie Gregorio. Traveling Swirls, Ellen Stein. Milkweed Thistle, Lenny McDonald. Bridge, Peter Smagel.
Interesting images.
Yeah. Okay, folks, where is my little? It's not picking up. There it goes. Open B. School. Open B. Skylight.
I like the view. I like the contrast between the clouds and the diagonal lines of the building. I think that this is a case where you don't need as much cloud. I think cutting it off maybe a third of the way down and a bit to the left to get this point of the building out of the center would have helped it. 7.
Oh, yeah. Papulus glaucus on lily.
Looks like an eastern tiger swallowtail to me, but in any event, you know, the butterfly itself is well captured. The wings are pretty flat. They're in the same plane as the sensor of the camera. It's a little too busy an image for me with flower over here and the white part being out of focus and I don't know whether they're pistils or stamens being on this side and an out of focus petal there, not a petal, but a leaf there. Just a little too much happening in this image for me. 6.
Winter tree.
You know, it's just, I mean, you have to choose your subjects carefully for competitions. In this particular subject, the winter tree with a scattering of headstones around it does not see, and kind of cut off on one side. It just doesn't seem like a striking composition. I'm not sure what I would have, well, maybe what I would have recommended is using a wide angle lens and getting really low and right up on top of that headstone and putting the tree behind it. Might be more dramatic. As presented, 6.
Morning snow, lake surprise.
Well, that's a pleasing image. You know, it conveys a nice mood. The reflection is good, nice calm water. I might like to see a little more contrast in the trees. 7.
Solitude stroll.
Maker got nice and low here. Really good placement of this shadow, bench shadow, bringing us right to the man. I'm assuming it's a man with an umbrella. The one criticism I have is this white thing right in the foreground. It's very distracting. I guess it's a leaf. That, you know, I would have either gotten rid of that physically with a little bit of housekeeping or gotten rid of it in post-processing. I'll see it again, 7.
Overview.
Well, my first impression of this one is positive. It's dynamic. It's an unusual viewpoint. The escalator lines going up and curving at the top are good. I think the placement of a couple of figures works well. Minor problems with some of the bright areas, especially this one and the pillar and over kind of toward the upper left and the line going down the side of the escalator. It's really drawn my eye away from the central part, which is really where you want the viewer to be looking. 6.
Ison sesame orchid.
You know, this is an in-between shot. I mean, these are beautiful orchids and they're pretty sharp, which is hard to do. So I commend the maker on that, either using focus stacking or F16, F22. What bothers me is clipping the left edge of the orchid in the front. You know, this is the kind of image where I think less would have been more, just focusing on, say, the interesting part of the front orchid would have been a much stronger image. 6.
Catching a view.
You know, the mountain is certainly beautiful, and I like the figure taking a picture of the mountain. However, the time of day is not helping you here. It's close to midday. The shadows are close to being straight down, and you know, they're very harsh. It's just you know, it's not a pleasing shot for that reason. 6.
Not interested.
Well, my first thought was that this is just taking a picture of somebody's artwork, in which case I would have immediately given it a 6. But I think the person down in the lower right-hand corner and the title really add some interest to it and add a little intrigue to the picture. And I think technically it's well done. The whites are well maintained. I like it. 7.
Vivid contrast.
I think this works well. I think that the contrast is a good one. This could have been entered, in fact, in the abstract category. The only suggestion I have is I don't know that you need that much blue in the sky. I probably would have cropped it down a bit. That's a small nit that I'm picking. 7.
New York.
I don't have a clue what I'm looking at. It's interesting. Again, I think it probably would have worked well, maybe even better in the abstract category. I guess this is somebody's face. Those are sunglasses on a face. I still can't quite figure it out. Maybe it's a mural. I don't know. It's certainly maintaining my interest. 7.
Bee in flight.
Well, the bee itself is well done. I love the pollen on the hind leg. It's pretty sharp, although what is this? Is this an antenna? I'm not quite sure. Nah, it's not. It's coming out of the mouth. Whatever this is sticking out of its mouth is pretty soft. That's not the antenna, I guess. This is one of the antenna. Boy, it's hard to make sense out of the head here. And I don't like the fact that this curved metal piece is intersecting with the bee, and behind it, I guess that's a flower. It's very distracting. The bee itself is beautifully done, but the distractions are bothering me, and the piece coming in on the lower left down in the corner is bothering me. 6. Needs to be cleaned up.
Downside up.
Well, this I think is well done. It's an interesting view. It's sharp just about throughout. You know, there's a very, very small flaw where one of these pieces, I guess it's a petal, not a petal, a sepal coming down, intersects here, and I'd like to see a little bit of space where it intersects the stem. But really, that's a very trivial point. Other than that, it's nicely done. I might have cleaned up some of those black specks on it. You know, when you're presenting something in a competition, just takes another minute or two to use the remove tool or the clone stamp, whatever you prefer, to get rid of some of the black spots. But these are all very trivial points. 7.
Harmony in the park.
I probably would have cropped this one in from the left a little bit. I don't know that you need all that space, but it's an interesting composition. I like the way the maker silhouetted the benches and the trees against what I assume is the setting, the sunset. It might even be civil twilight with the sun below the horizon. Other than cropping in a bit from the left, I think it's well captured. 7. Eight. 9. 8. 9. 8. 7. 9. 8.
Open B, honorable mention, Skylight, Wayne Greenstone. Solitude Stroll, Emma Tager. Vivid Contrast, Emma Tager. Harmony in the Park, Emma Tager. Open B, Equal Merit, Morning Snow, Lake Surprise, Fernando Gomes. Not interested, Fernando Gomes. Downside Up, Fernando Gomes.
Fernando cleaned up.
Go, Open A. Fours up.
Well, it's a really cute posture on this fox. The background is not helping you. It's very bright. And those eyes, I don't know if this is a demon fox. I mean, those catch lights, they're just strange. I don't know if they're a little too large. But it's kind of an unappealing look. Not sure where the light is coming from, the way those catch lights are. 6.
The Beauty of Light Painting.
That's nicely done. Again, it could have been in the abstract, would have worked well there. It's well contained. It's not going off the edge. It's an interesting arrangement. 7.
Japanese Shrine.
Well, again, another case of less being more. The Japanese shrine is your subject. It's got a nice reflection. I don't know that this rock over on the left helps you. It's drawing my eye away from the subject. At the very least, I would have darkened it, but I think even better, I would have cropped in and gotten rid of it. It doesn't support the story being whatever's happening with the lantern. 6.
Snow at the Falls.
I like the composition of the, I assume this is the Patterson Falls, with the water kind of cascading toward the middle of the image. I do think there are a few problems though. The whites of snow are pretty much losing all detail, and the rocks in the foreground are very soft and out of focus. 6.
Seed Pod.
You know, the seed pod itself is interesting. I do think this is one of those situations where you have to follow the lead of the really good flower photographers and carry your own background with you and have your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend hold it behind the picture, because the background is just so bright and distracting that it detracts from the image. 6.
Scratch, please.
Well, you know, the background is a little better here, and that even though it's very bright, it's mostly soft, at least from the midline up. I probably would have darkened it a little bit. And you know, I guess those catch lights are natural. They just look strange to me, but in this particular case, I'm going to assume they're natural. I think you have to look around the edges of your image, do what I call a border patrol. At the very bottom, there's a little brown piece of something sticking in, and in the upper left-hand corner, all of a sudden it gets dark. These are just little distractions, small points. I want to see it again. 7.
Stepping out, great blue heron.
Nicely placed in the frame. I might have cropped down a little bit from the top, and I don't know that you need quite as much room in front of it. It's pretty sharp. The heron itself is a little flat to me, and lacking in feather detail. Not sure why that is, but for those reasons, the cropping and the feather detail, I'm giving this one a 6.
Mother Nature's heart.
Well, it is kind of in the shape of a heart. I see that. It's lacking in something, and you have this, whatever this is, this like a branch or a twig. I'm not quite sure, on the right-hand side of the frame, going through it, it serves as a distraction. It's just lacking in something to me, whether a little bit of sharpness, a little bit of impact. 6.
You looking at me.
You? I think the pigeon itself is pretty well captured, although I would like to see, I can only see one of its eyes, and I would like to see the other eye, or to have it completely in portrait, one or the other, not midway between. And the step that it's on, going right through the body, brightly going right through the body, is just very distracting to me. I think it might have been stronger if the maker got lower, got at eye level with it, and just showed the top part of the pigeon. 6.
Prezels.
This one hurts to look at. Well, it's certainly a dynamic capture of a wrestling contest. The background, it's tough in you really can't choose your background in these kind of situations. I might have tried to darken up some of those whites, especially in the upper right-hand corner, and the person, maybe the referee, walking in to the frame on the left. But the subject itself is certainly dynamic. I'll see it again. 7.
Shadow trees.
Interesting. I would like to see a little more of a center of interest. This might have done better in the abstract category. I like the silhouette. The maker put some thought in it. Again, I think it's a case where less would be more. I might have dropped it in after these first 3 elements on the right-hand side and just had the 4 or 5 elements on the left. It might have been stronger. You have the separation right here between these 3 elements on the right and the 4 or 5 on the left. That might have served as a good break point. 6.
Peaceful beauty, moose at rest.
It's a pleasing shot. It's a nice nature, an animal in its environment shot. The only suggestion I have is that I would like to see the moose stand out more. Right now, it's almost the same brightness and luminance as everything around it, except for that bright area of grass going through the middle. And I might have actually darkened it a little bit to make it pop out a little more increase the contrast. 7,
Nestled in the woods.
the building itself, the old cabin or old house is nicely done. There is a however here, and the saturation in the green of all the foliage was just over the top for me. And for that reason, I'm giving it a 6. I think it can be reprocessed and put in again.
Springfield Ave Bridge.
It's a pleasing composition, you know, a nice calm water, good reflection, beautiful snow captured on the trees. I might have darkened the sky just a little bit. 7,
Temple Courtyard.
looks like somebody probably went down to that enormous Hindu temple in Robbinsville. It's a nice composition. The only criticism I have is the very bright sky. I probably would have darkened that again. You don't want my eye going up to the sky. That should be the least interesting part and therefore the least bright part. That's probably going to, otherwise it's nicely done, but that will most likely keep it from getting a 9. 7.
Okay.
9. 8. 8. 8. 9. 8.
Open A, honorable mention. Scratch Please, Nellie Stollers. Prezel, Charlene Federowitz. Peaceful Beauty, Musa Rest, Wendy Milligan. Temple Courtyard, Charlene Federowitz. Open A, Equal Merit. Beauty of Light Painting, Wendy Milligan. Springfield Ave Bridge, Jim Shalan. All right, and finally, where is it? I just skipped it.
Nellie, those patch lights in the front?
I did nothing to that picture.
Okay,
But it's to do all six.
hard to tell sometimes.
Open Salon. Zebra Leaves.
Well, it's an interesting arrangement. I do think it suffers a little bit from the darkest part of the image being right in the middle. Normally, you know, someplace toward the middle, at least, you'd expect a center of interest, not the darkest part. I think maybe some reprocessing and doing a little dodging and burning would improve this one. 6.
Twisting Towers.
It's a fascinating image. I like it a lot. I think it's creative. It has some humor, some impact to it. I would have propped it a little bit from the left and the top. 7.
Oculus and Pastels.
Well, we've seen a couple of these in the abstract, and they're nice. They're nice compositions. I don't know that this one is quite as strong as the others. And I think that in the upper left-hand corner, just this little, you know, I'd like to see either a little more or not have that in at all. But that's a small point. 7.
Heron.
It's an interesting portrait. You know, it's somewhat limiting what you can do with a straight portrait. You always want to see the animal doing something with a frog or a fish in its mouth, or in flight with a frog and a fish in its mouth. But it's certainly technically well done. The background is non-distracting. I'll see it again. 7.
Winter Falls.
I like this one a lot. You know, the water is pleasing. I think some judges might think there's not enough detail in it, but I like the effect. I think for me at least, there's enough detail in it. And, you know, the maker just focused in on the most interesting part. It's framed nicely with this icy material on the right-hand side. All the details are well maintained. 7.
Silhouette with hoop.
Oh, I see. So that's a human figure in the middle. Interesting. It's intriguing. It maintains my interest. I think technically it's well done. The just touch of a little bit, it's not all black around it, but just a touch of purple. I think everything works nicely together. 7.
Okay, you can do it. Churros
Euro commute.
commute. Thank you, sir.
Well, this is an unusual treatment. It's a difficult shot the way they're backlit, but still maintaining detail in the figures walking toward the camera. Well, I would have liked to have seen just a little more room on the right-hand side next to those two figures. They're very, very close. But that's so small and picky. Although, you know, you could have easily extended the canvas and painted that in, but very nicely done shot. I'm not going to take off for that. 7.
Flowers behind glass.
Creative. This could have easily been in the abstract. I think it's an interesting shot. You know, the flowers are the center of interest, and they are pretty much the brightest area. It holds my interest. I can picture this on somebody's wall. It's a beautiful decorative shot. 7.
Hanging by a thread.
Well, you know, I'm guessing this is by the same maker that did the other similar image in the abstract category. I like that one. I like this one too. It's creative. It's unusual. I think the white space in this case works. It could also be in a minimalism competition, but it's a very strong composition. 7.
Snowflakes.
The snowflake itself works well, but there's just too much distracting me from it and obscuring it. Boy, I wish that somehow you could have captured the snowflake just in isolation. 6.
Eye on rust.
I like this one. I like I don't know exactly what it is, but whatever this is in the left-hand side, forming a center of interest off center. Might I have cropped it in a little bit? Yeah, perhaps, but I don't know. I think it works pretty well. And in fact, the brightest area being the area surrounding this figure on the left-hand side works well. I think it all works nicely together. 7.
The city sunset silhouette.
Well, you know, I'm wondering whether by now, you know, each judge has their own preferences and own style of judging. And I'm wondering whether there's too much in this image. I don't know, perhaps not. I mean, I was wondering whether, well, you can't really get the end of this pier, the end of this point, without getting this line of piers, holes in there. I think it works well. I love the clouds. 7.
Abstract glass.
You know, I like this one. I'm just wondering whether, again, there's too much, whether it would have been stronger if the maker concentrated on just one of these kind of major figures, say the one on the upper right here, the kind of pyramidal figure that's kind of coming out towards the viewer. I'll see it again though. 7.
Mushroom underside.
I like this one. I just am not sure that the bottom works well. You know, I like the upper 2/3 of the image where it's pretty sharp and where the brightest part is. I just don't know whether all of that soft stuff on the bottom out of focus area helps the image. I think it would be stronger without that. 6.
Fish House.
I like the house, I like the reflection. I'm not sure that the area on the right helps the image. And technically, it's well done. I'll see it again, 7. Eight. 8. 7. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 8. 8. 7.
Open Salon, honorable mention. Twisting Towers, Peter Smagel. Oculus and Pastels, Natalie Gregorio. The City Sunset Silhouette, Peter Smagel. Abstract Glass, Natalie Gregorio. Open Salon, Equal Merit. Winter Falls, Arlene Sorbenzetti. Silhouette with Hoop, Ellen Stein. Okay, again, Commute, Peter Smagel. Flowers Behind Glass, Natalie Gregorio. Hanging by a Thread, Lenny McDonald. Eye on Rust, Ellen Stein.
Very nice.
Thank you all.
I don't know if you do judge evaluations, but if you do, feel free to send me the results.
Does anybody have any questions for Phil? Can you hear me online?
Are you on mute?
Yes. Yes.
Does anybody have any questions for Phil?
No questions.
Nice job, Phil.
Yes.
Okay, then I'll say goodnight to everybody.
Good night.